your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up. Take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So a couple of reasons why I wanted to come and chop it up with you on a Sunday afternoon. It's got to be something if I'm coming to you over the weekend. I did drop my mock draft for the Washington Commanders 7-round mock draft yesterday. I'm going to react to that on Monday. So keep watching. If you haven't watched it yet, take a look at it. Tell me what you think. I've seen some, and this is why I love mock drafts, because people get so riled up over mock drafts. People get so intense when it comes to a mock draft. I'm like, you do know this is fake, right? Like this isn't actually how it's going to turn out. People get so upset and in their feelings. Nonetheless, I want all the comments. I want all the smoke, whether it's good or bad. I want it all. And we'll, discuss a lot of the comments on a show tomorrow where I kind of dive in. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at the mock draft, please, by all means, do so. And comment if you would like to have a chance to be a part of the show tomorrow. That said, the real reason I came to talk to you today is twofold. Washington added 3 more names to the list of the 30 official visits, bringing the number to 21. I want to discuss those. And then I thought about something after looking at one of the names that was added to the list. And so we'll talk about that and what that may mean. And, my brain starts to work in mysterious ways, and I want to talk about that too. But I first want to knock this out. So I know you guys have seen, because we all got excited, some more than others. You guys know where I stand on this whole Daniel Snyder selling the team thing. Until it happens, it hasn't happened. But it's going to happen, and that's something that we can all share happiness and joy in, knowing that it's going to get done. It's just a matter of when, not if anymore, when. But it was a non-exclusive deal. We talked about this, that he agreed to in principle. Okay, nothing is etched in stone, but it was a non-exclusive, meaning other parties could still swoop in and make this a very convoluted process. Hence, Brian Davis. Now, this is, to me, far-fetched. I do want to address it, but I don't put a lot of stock nor validity into it. One, I'm a Duke Blue Devils fan, and he is a part of the teams that really sucked me in and made me the fan that I am of the Duke Blue Devils. He was a part of those teams in the early 90s with Hurley and Leitner and Grant Hill. He was a huge part of those teams, was Brian Davis. And so, you follow those guys to just anybody that goes to Duke that had a prominent role in a championship team. You kind of keep tabs on them just to make sure that everything's good. And so him and Leitner ended up, going into business together. It hasn't gone well for them. So if you're a Blue Devils fan, you probably already know all of this stuff. So when I heard his name, I was like, what? You got people left and right suing this dude for money. I'm a Scottie Pippen fan. You guys know that. So of course, I know that Scottie Pippen sued him back in like 2016, 17, somewhere in there, because of a failed deal and that he never got his money back for. And so when I'm hearing Brian Davis's name come up in the Commanders, and, it was earlier in the process, and I was like, hey, get him the hell out of here. He doesn't have any money. And to now hear that he's trying to come to the table with a $7 billion bid, $1 billion over the next closest bid. We know the highest bid that was submitted was the bid by the Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, and Mitchell Rales group of $6.05 billion. To hear that he's going to be able to pay Daniel Snyder $7 billion, and I think at a bare minimum, one of it in straight cash. And then also he was talking about the indemnification process and saying, I will take on all of the heat that you have. I will inherit that and let you walk away from this thing free. He's trying to sweeten the pot. And I'm like, where is this coming from? You don't have the money, okay? You don't have the finances. You can't even pay the people back that you owe money to. Like, this is amazing that this is even a thing, right? Why is this even something we're talking about? But it is something worth mentioning because, he's making a last-ditch effort to try to get into this process. I just want to tell you guys this, and this is why you shouldn't really be paying too much attention to this, nor putting too much stock into this. At the end of the day, the NFL owners have to agree to allow you to become the new owner of the team. Do you really think they're going to allow a guy like Brian Davis, with the shady background that he has in financial dealings, take over an NFL franchise when they're trying to get rid of a guy that hasn't necessarily been the cleanest in the financial department, nor in the human being, department? You really think they're going to allow another shady individual who has had some shady business deals go down in his past, and not some, a bunch of them? You really think they're going to let him buy an NFL franchise, specifically the one in Washington that they're trying to clean up because it's one of the biggest markets in the league that they're not fully tapping into? Do you really think they're going to allow that to happen? Yeah, right. So I'm just telling you this. No matter what anybody says, he's not getting the team. Okay? Now, I've heard some owners disappointed at the $6 billion that Daniel Snyder fetched for the franchise. They thought that the team was worth $7 billion, and they're upset that he's taking this bid for $6 billion. But, you got to do what you got to do, because these owners want these teams to go for as high as they possibly can go. So when the next owner comes around and decides to sell, well, they're saying, hey, Washington went for this amount. So, next up in the line should be going up. It's no different than players wanting the next guy in free agency to break the bank, because that means the next guy that comes along is going to top him and he's going to break the bank. So I said all of that to say this: Brian Davis isn't getting a bid for this team. The owners would not vote for him to take over the team. None of that will transpire. It's going to be the Josh Harris, Magic Johnson, and Mitchell Rales group. That's what it's ultimately going to be. But that was interesting. Okay, not important, but interesting. Anyway, here's the real reason I wanted to come chop it up with you. Washington added 3 more names to their official visits list, bringing the total to 21. They added a cornerback in Garrett Williams out of Syracuse. They added a tackle out of Alabama in Tyler Steen. And they added a corner, Devon Witherspoon, out of Illinois. So quickly, we'll go over the 3 prospects. And I want to talk about something that kind of jogged my memory after looking at the list as is. So Witherspoon, we know about Witherspoon. We talked about Witherspoon already. I don't really need to go into great detail about what he brings to the table. I don't think he's going to be around at 16, but Washington doing their due diligence, as they should, because you never know what'll happen in this draft. I've already talked about Hendon Hooker going in the first round. He could go in front of Washington and make it 5 quarterbacks. If 5 quarterbacks go in the first 16 picks, that means there are going to be some players that slip through the cracks. Devon Witherspoon could be one of them, and Washington is just doing their due diligence, which they should. Another corner, Garrett Williams, Syracuse. He's interesting. Similar size to Devon Witherspoon. One of the questions about him, long distance speed. Charlie Jones, a guy that I really like out of Purdue. I watched him run by him. Charlie Jones, we know, can run. He's a 4.44 guy, so it's not like he's slow. But I saw him run by him several times in the game earlier this season against Purdue, or Syracuse playing Purdue, and watching Garrett Williams. And it does bring the question, can he run? We won't know, and that's a problem because he tore his ACL at the end of October, pretty much the end of October. I think it was the 29th. He did it in the game against Notre Dame. So he was obviously out for the remainder of the season. I think he should be ready for the start of camp, because that would put him in the time frame. Camp usually starts late July. That would put you in the 9-month time frame from an ACL tear. If it's just an ACL, if everything's going on schedule, he could probably be back for the start of training camp. But the likelihood is he might not be ready to start the season. Either way, none of that really matters. I think Washington is simply doing their homework on a guy that they expect to fall in this draft that, if healthy, would have probably been a 3rd-round pick or so. But because of the injury, teams might bypass Garrett Williams, and he may slip to the 5th, 6th round. And Washington's maybe just kind of monitoring that situation, want to talk to the kid, get a feel for how his, injury situation is going, how the rehab is going, where his mental is, and kind of, gauging whether this is a guy they'd be willing to, pull the trigger on late in the draft as a high upside, low risk type of proposition. That's what I think they ultimately are doing there. But we'll see. But he's a good football player. Physical, will come up and hit you. I think he's more of a zone cover corner than he is a man cover corner because again, of that question about speed. However, I think Washington is interested because they think they could get him on a low value type of pick late in the draft because of the injury situation. That's something to keep an eye on. But the guy that really sparked all of this for me was Tyler Steen, tackle out of Alabama, played 3 years at Vandy before transferring over to Alabama as a graduate. And I actually really like Tyler Steen a lot. And he's a good athlete, gets out of his stance really well. The biggest thing that I saw is in bull rush situations, he can be pushed back a little bit. But he always finds a way to anchor. It's just it's a little late for me. Because if your quarterback is antsy, he might bail because he's out of the corner of his eye, that peripheral, he just sees his guy getting pushed back. But he usually is able to anchor down and settle in. I watched him against LSU. He handled B.J. Ojulari, who was going to be one of the guys that probably goes in the first 2 days of the draft, and handled him easily. I thought he moved really well in the run game. I thought he was solid at the point of attack. I like Tyler Steen. I wouldn't mind adding him to the team, right? So it got me to thinking. Washington has interviewed 9 offensive linemen of the 21 so far. And it makes me think that they've got a certain amount of numbers, a certain amount of number of players for each position set up, right? So they've got 9 offensive linemen that they've interviewed to this point of the 21 official visits. 3 tackles, 3 guards, 3 centers. All right. Is that a coincidence? I don't think so. Now, of the 3 tackles, 2 have experience playing left tackle. Tyler Steen is primarily a left tackle. Darnell Wright from Tennessee has played both right and left, more so right, but he started for primarily all of his junior season as a left tackle, so he's got experience playing left tackle. DeJuan Jones is the other tackle. He's a right tackle and a right tackle only. I keep seeing that they are taking a look at tackles, and it's getting me to thinking. Our GM, Martin Mayhew, was very, very dismissive of the salary cap when he spoke at the league meetings 3 weeks ago. And when he was asked about the cap situation, he just shooed it away like, we're good. We got nothing. It's nothing to see here. We don't currently, as the cap is constructed, we don't have enough money to pay our draft picks right now. Something has to be done. And I'm sitting here thinking to myself, because it's not like soon as you make the picks, you have to then pay them. That's a process of getting all your guys inked to a deal, right? Not as long as it used to be because they fit into little pockets, right? Because of the new CBA and how it's set up, everybody finds their little pocket and they sign their deal. Sometimes the language gets in the way, but for the most part, everybody, what the deal is going to be when you get drafted. You're slotted into certain slots, and that's that. So I started to think, why was he so adamant that we're good, don't worry about us, we're fine, cap-wise? We don't even have enough money to sign our draft picks as the cap is constituted right now. We are barely head above water, cap-wise. And I started to think, they must know something that we don't know. And obviously, that's how I took it when he said, okay, they've got some cuts, some guys that they're going to move on from that they're not telling us about right now, but they're confident that they're going to free up cap space and it's going to allow them to do all the things that they need to do. Fine. Chase Roulier is the name that keeps coming up, and for good reason. Hasn't been healthy the last 2 years, making a substantial amount of money. You could probably save, I don't know exactly what the savings would be if they would restructure how much they could save under the cap with that direction if they decided to go there. The assumption is it's got to be somewhere in the $4 to $5 million range. He signed a 4-year, $40 million extension. That's 10 per. I would assume that the numbers are, staggered from year to year. I don't know if they can save 7 or 8, but I'm thinking that number's got to be anywhere from 4 to 5. But this is why I brought this up, because watching Tyler Steen and, DeJuan Jones and all the guys that they've been, Darnell Wright, that they've been interested in with these visits, they've looked at a bunch of tackles. They've talked to a bunch of tackles at pro days and at the combine. And I just said, what if they're going to move on from Charles Leno Jr.? Like, what if they're looking at these tackles? Because I told you, I don't think they're going to take a tackle in the second round. But I think they'd be interested in taking a tackle in the first round. But what if they're interested in taking a tackle first, second, or third round because they are looking to move on from Charles Leno Jr.? Cutting him this year would save you roughly $8 million. Now, he's Walter Payton Man of the Year recipient last year, or the nomination for the Washington Commanders last year. He's a big locker room guy. All right, he's a captain on this team, very vocal and outspoken, great in the community. There's a lot of positives to Charles Leno Jr., and some of them on the field, but most of them off the field. But because he's such a quality leader, because we're already shifting around pieces on the offensive line. You're going to have a new right tackle. You're probably going to have a new center. If not a new center, you're going to have a new a left guard. Do you want a new left tackle as well? Do you want the continuity of the line to be in flux that much? Look, at this point, I just want the best 5 guys out there. And I've been adamant all offseason that I don't think they're going to move on from Charles Leno Jr., even though we all acknowledge that he is not the future at left tackle. I don't think they're going to rock that boat this year, because it just doesn't make any sense for them to do that right now and create another hole on the offensive line that they really just don't need to have at this current juncture, with you still having issues at left guard, question marks at center, and figuring out, I think they've figured out what they want to do on the right side with Wiley at right tackle and Cosmi at right guard, but, still having to answer questions about, bringing this line together and finding the right 5. Do you want to add another question to an offensive line that came into this offseason with as many questions as any other position group for this team? The answer for me is no. And while he isn't necessarily the biggest issue that we had last year, he was an issue at times last year. And I've contended that he wasn't as bad as people made him out to be, but it was his plays that he wasn't good on and how costly they were that makes his play stand out. So I got to thinking, what if they're really thinking about drafting a tackle to replace him so that they can cut him and save $8 million? Now, if he stays on the team this year, they can cut him next year, save $12 million, and only take a $2 million cap hit. So it'd be more beneficial for you to hold on to him again this year and then move on from him next year if you so choose. I've been adamant. I'm going to continue to stay with what I've said, which is they're not going to address tackle in the draft. But if they do early, and it's not a right tackle, because Wiley right now is penciled in at right tackle. Wiley can't play left tackle. You could put Wiley at guard. You sure can. But then what does that mean for Sam Cosmi? They want Cosmi to play somewhere. They didn't draft him in the second round for him to just sit on the bench. It's not like Cosmi has played poorly. He's just been injured. So the likelihood is that they draft a tackle, they're looking for a guy that is comfortable on the left side. What if they're looking to move on from Charles Leno Jr.? It's just a what if. I don't think it's going to happen, but seeing that they've interviewed and had in for these visits a few tackles, 2 out of the 3 being able to play left tackle, met with a bunch of tackles this offseason throughout the All-Star process, Combine, East-West Shrine Game, Pro Days. Got me to thinking. They gotta free up the money somewhere. It's not just going to magically appear. They got to have something up their sleeve. $8 million is a lot of money to save. We've seen guys cut for much less. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on that situation. What if? All right? What if? We'll see. Anyway, I digress. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the command post. You know what it is. Post up and take command. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we will reconvene tomorrow where I will react to you guys reacting to my mock draft. Should be a lot of fun because there were a lot of things that were said that were very funny to me, including that I had a booger in my nose that I didn't even know I had. Like that, I'm so disappointed in myself because I usually do a pretty good job of checking the nostrils to make sure that there's nothing up there that will embarrass me. And when you have a big nose, this is what happens. You just got boogers up in the canal, chilling, waiting to make a fool out of you. And apparently, up until the 5th round, I had a boogie in there jamming hard. And so, yeah, such is life. Anyway, you guys go and have a great weekend. And I look forward to chopping it up with you on Monday. And hopefully nothing else happens of note. And we can just have normal conversations. We're going to turn up the heat on the draft next week because it's the last full week prior to the draft. So really, from here on out, the draft coverage is going to be intense on this channel. So stay tuned. But in any event, you guys have a great rest of your weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Take care.
LouieTeeNetwork.